Ever since that horrible national election day in 2016, I've been trying to figure out why America has lost faith with people like me. Why have we lost that basic American caring with regard to our fellow occupants of this planet? Why have we seemingly fallen out of touch with the needs of average people, college students, wage earners, single moms, truck drivers, landscapers, even progressive business people? In my exploration, I have reconfirmed that Democrats were once caring about most of us. The great civil improvements making our society mature and well-rounded came from students, unions, activists committed to their convictions, and yes, at the same time, committed to our nation. Democrats were in on most of this. The 40-hour work week, women's suffrage, quality public colleges with accessible tuition, Social Security, a living wage, end to child labor abuses, health benefits at high-quality facilities, civil rights, child care, we haven't quite made that affordable, occupational safety, and many others. According to the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics, the real minimum wage has deteriorated to levels that approximate those of just after World War II. While labor productivity has skyrocketed, I wonder who gets the difference. If you can look at chart number 1, the green line going up towards the top is the value of worker productivity. The blue line is what would have happened to the minimum wage if it had been allowed to float along with our productivity growth. The red line is what the minimum wage actually was since just after World War II. The gap between the green line and the blue line is part of what we deal with today. Similarly, the real weekly earnings based on the U.S. Consumer Price Index for all wage earners' earnings has been flat since the 1970s, while the real gross domestic product that each of us creates has skyrocketed. Once again, who gets the difference if average Americans clearly are not? And that is shown in table number 2. The blue line at the top this time is what we actually produce. The red line at the bottom represents the real income, spendable, usable income of average American workers. Flat since the 1970s. When you mix this in with the U.S. federal poverty indicators, it looks like chart number 3. A dotted line at the top representing the poverty line for a family of 3, the dotted line lower than that representing the poverty line of an individual, and you can see that the minimum salary has hovered between each of those dotted lines. Perhaps this is what President Trump means when he pledges to make America great again. Unfortunately, none of his actions so far seem to indicate that. Our recently experienced Labor Day was instituted in 1894 to recognize and publicly appreciate those who made our economy the envy of the Western world in 1894. That productivity continues to this day. We just no longer appreciate it, no matter what fine words are said every Labor Day. Democrats used to have a stake in this, but seemingly no longer. We were an economy, until recently, that was the envy of the entire world and had productivity, worker productivity, at the top of the world list. Perhaps this is why. We produce someone else gets the money. Do Americans work harder than any other workers in the world as a national experience? Seemingly so. Why aren't they benefiting from it? Could there be a bit of despair that helped elect our current president? Almost 13% of Americans abuse alcohol. There is lots of despair. Perhaps that would calm down under campaigner Trump's call for an increase from $7.25 an hour minimum wage to $10 an hour. Surely that resonated during the campaign. But no action so far from the White House. Odd that most wealthy Americans recovered quite well from the recent Great Recession, December 2007 to June 2009. Credit default, swaps, all of that. But ordinary wage earners have not recovered. I do not claim to be able to fix all of this, but my musing on it has caused me to ask questions of our local congressional delegation. Beginning with a Marching Forward event held at the UMass Law School on August 24 of this year, I asked Congressman Keating, quote, NAFTA notwithstanding, the world of work is now shifting and will continue to shift. 500,000 or so out of 600,000 long-haul truck driving jobs will be lost to Auto, a software that can get trucks over most highways. Grocery stores can deliver your order with driverless cars. Coal that no one needs. Medicine that can be done by algorithm. Malls closing all over the nation because no one buys things there anymore in favor of Amazon. And many, many others we can easily imagine. Democrats used to be the party of ordinary, striving Americans. What are Democrats doing to think about work in the rest of the 21st century? How do we become relevant again? My actual hope was that this frame of reference would be an opportunity for Congressman Keating to tell us, how do we get there? How do we participate in the relighting of the torch? I have subsequently asked the same question of U.S. Senators Warren and Markey. No answers yet. The usual Democratic Party reply to this sort of thing are job training, initial schooling preparation for multiple jobs in a career of work, and advantaging the disadvantaged. As I have explained many times in various discussions, I am opposed to none of these. But none of them will get us off the dime in terms of finding new voters or even keeping the ones we have. I truly believe that we will not rid ourselves of the crudeness, incivility, and intolerance of President Trump and his ilk if we do not find an alternative other than Trump stinks. I most seriously believe that we need to give voters a reason to believe in us. Senator Sanders struck the same chord that President Trump did during the campaign, and that was widespread discontent toward both parties. I assume that most office holders to national positions know all of this, but I assert that if we could have a plan for what will make America smart again, productive, compassionate, meaningful, then we will get back on track. Many of you viewing this may know me as a very active, progressive Democrat and have been so a long time. But I fear our just do the same old thing except with more money posture, which seems to be what we have, is not going to get us anywhere. There is great concern among Democrats with whom I speak that we are directionless and only are the party opposed to the other guy's ideas. What are ours. Why should anyone vote with us? My wonderings relate to my conclusion that we need to care about all those people who will be displaced by this particular sea change. With all due respect, job training will not spark that which we need. For what it's worth, I do not believe there was the same problem when we transitioned from hunter-gatherers to farmers. No jobs lost. When there was a transition from agriculture to the industrial era, the lost jobs in farming were made up in the production of the world's food supply by using tractors and such implements. And new jobs were created in cities and factories. Now, when factories are losing some punch in job creation, and many retail jobs are just disappearing, and most service jobs can be done by robots of one kind or another, we are looking at a massive job shift. Perhaps there will be a time down the road where, like Star Trek, there will be no money and therefore no need for jobs. But what do we do until then? If Democrats could think about the lives of the many ordinary Americans that will inhabit the rest of the 21st century, I believe that would lead to policy positions that would outflank the Trump Republicans, actually make America better and benefit all of society. Are we doing this, DNC? What is stopping us? Thank you.